Hi, everybody. Welcome. So glad to have you all here. So what's there to be said about silence? Because whatever I'm describing, it's never silence. So the only thing left over, so to speak, is imagination. That's all that's ever being described. And just like a dream at night, it can feel extremely real. That is until you realize you don't know what real is. And so knowing isn't interested in silence because there's nothing to know. But and so that's what's always overlooked when we're lost in thought, in story, in drama, in chaos, in my life. That's all the story. It's a description, it's a narrative. It's got characters, it's got good guys, got bad, villains, people you like, people you don't like. But it's not what you are. Just like when you go to the movies and watch a movie, you're not the movie. Even if you forget, even
Hello.
if the movie scares you, oh, the wrong Joe. I'm so sorry.
Wait, what?
Yeah, my bad. I got tricked because he happened to pick the name Joe, which we, as you know, we have a Joe. So I got tricked into Zoom bombing. So that too. So this can't be understood, please. But this is just all you could say appearing from silence, the energy, you could call it, does a dance. That was the dance just now. We had a nice, lovely Zoom bomber dance. And then back into the silence. So if you notice, whatever you thought was happening a minute ago, it's nowhere to be found right now.
It did reverberate though. Like I noticed even the last time when something like that happens, I keep it alive for a while. It affects me and then it kind of reverberates. I hear what you're saying. It keeps like maintained in the imagination
What
for
does?
a
No,
pardon.
I didn't quite catch it. What maintains in the imagination?
It triggers a story when something, it's like an intrusion. it's a somewhat violent act, for a sensitive non-person like me. And so it comes and goes, and you say, "Oh, it disappears, it's gone," and I noticed it doesn't, like, my mind, the story keeps going on for a little bit. It's not just gone.
Okay. So while that's happening, yeah, while that's all happening, where's the silence? I mean, did it go away?
The thing that goes on is in the foreground, and the silence is is ignored because
Sure.
it's in the background.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we can all relate to that, Peter. Sort of almost like takes you over.
Right.
Now, let's see what we can say about silence. So, what could you say about silence, right? Could you say silence is angry? Like, would that be? No, right? You don't get that feeling.
Mm-mm.
It seems that it's tough to come up with a description for silence, funny enough. So maybe, Peter, to answer your question, it's overlooked until you come to these weird meetings like this one and the other, you know, the other motley crew that does this, and they say, well, wait, look again. And just some of us are more sensitive, you know, right? I mean, a lot of it, what we're sharing here wouldn't compute. They're like, what are you talking about? But for a very, just sensitive, like something's off. So there's just suffering, and something intuitively you just ah. And so it turns out that these stories can be quite powerful, and until they're investigated. And one of my favorite is when Nkosi will say, the person will say, well, yeah, Nkosi, because that's what I was feeling. And he'll occasionally he'll say, you as what? And really, that's just to be meditated on. It's not really meant for a concrete, definite answer, but it is meant to be meditated. You is what? Because what is it that you think you are? By the way, I think I gave the answer away in my question. What is it you think you are?
A thought? Is that what you're saying? A thought?
Well, I'm just asking, what is it you think you are?
Well, I would say not the thought of who you are. That's not who you are.
Okay.
The thought is in the foreground, and clouds up what you are, and at least you're not conscious, or your attention is drawn to the thought.
Yeah. So as you start to become, let's just say, more aware of the silence, you can begin to notice it more. It becomes more obvious. Like another example Nkosi used was looking at a tree. He said, well, just look at a tree without the label tree. Just see what's actually there without the label.
Is it a matter of reprogramming the mind?
Okay, so Faye, let me ask you, would reprogramming the mind, is there any way you could do that? Would somehow have anything to do with the silence that's already here.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't. I suppose what I'm thinking is that the more you expose yourself to the space and the silence, the quieter, maybe the quieter the mind can become. Like
Well,
a practice.
well, I, it's almost, I mean, does silence turn you on? If I can be so crass, does silence, because here there's a real love, there's a real effortless joy as the silence that's always here becomes more and more, it's not overlooked. Like the thoughts aren't as interesting as the silence, because the silence is endless and it's a mystery, but the thoughts are just pure definition. You know, it's pure, as Nkosi said, bundles of information. That's all thoughts are, just bundles of information.
How about the mind's too busy to deal with silence?
Yeah. Deal with silence. Only a mind would say, I don't have time to deal with silence.
I put that on the bottom of my list.
The bottom, not the top. The
When
bottom.
I've gotten through all those other jobs, I'll have a look at that. Yeah.
I see. Yeah. Yeah, but there is an energy, that seeking me energy is so compelling. And it doesn't, you know, there's nothing it can do to see the silence. And it's only about doing, right? It's trying to do something, right? Isn't that seeking? I'm trying to create or get to a better experience. Otherwise, why would I be seeking? So
And
that,
it's,
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Faith.
I was just going to say, and it's driven by, what was I going to say? No, it's driven by there's something missing.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, you could say that for sure.
Oh.
It's amazing. But the clue is the red flag, at least here, it was seeing that nothing ever worked. No matter what I tried, no matter what trick, what clever thing I thought, what advantage I thought I could get, any of that, it turned out that was all futile. Like it completely made no difference. You know, you could be miserable in a $10 million mansion. It just doesn't matter.
A thought comes up with respect to seeking. If there is a belief that there is a purpose to life, that could like put a target to be sought to fulfill that purpose. Yeah, maybe ultimately it's always about happiness or completion, but just the seeking is that there is something out there to be reached that will signal that we're done, or
Right. So that's never gone into generally. What you just described, Peter, is always just sort of accepted at face value in the seeking, you're off before you even know it. So here we're actually shining the spotlight, we're putting the flashlight, and we're noticing that, well, is there really anybody inside that seeking energy?
Or you could put it another way, and as we have, as Michael, you have, but who is it that's seeking? In other words, who would benefit if I got what I'm looking for? Who am I doing this for? Who's it for? Who is it for? And I mean, that again, that's not, as Michael said, it's not really looked at, but it's an interesting thing to look at that. Like maybe I'm doing all this for I'm not even the one that I'm doing this for.
Who is the beneficiary?
Exactly. And that kind of also goes up against, well, wait a minute, what if it's already? And look into that. If it's already, then again, that makes it even more of a question. Who am I really doing? What is all this for? If it's already, what's this project about? Does that make sense? But really, go in, you got to look at that. Like right now, what is needed? What's missing? Where am I going? Where's this going? What would it be that would be here that would make this that it isn't? All these things,
And what is my role in all of this? What is it that I actually bring to the party? Am I, and you start to see that lo and behold, that me doesn't bring anything to the party. Is not bringing the rain, is not bringing the sun. It doesn't bring anything except you could maybe say misery. And why? Why does it feel? Because it feels separate, of course. Feeling separate when that's not what you actually are, And you can just, again, go back to silence. Can silence be separate? Right? It's a ridiculous question. Can silence be separate? What are you talking about? But a story, we could tell stories of separation. We could tell stories of separations about the imaginary me and believe them. But for some of us, that could get old. Like an amusement park and a lot of cotton candy and carnival rides and popcorn is fun maybe for a while as a kid. But maybe if you're still doing it and you're 60, 70 and you're like, I need a little more fiber in my diet. I need a little more substance. And lo and behold, it's right here. It's just everything. So you can't point to anything and say it's exclusively this or it's exclusively that, because it's just everything. So this is an open meeting. If anybody has anything to share or question, please feel free to unmute and jump in.
Just a comment, I suppose, that I had mentioned something in the previous meeting, but anyway, I got rid of the man. It's like there's this, even this idea of an ideal relationship would probably fill that, and nothing fills that. Just can't, and it's really frustrating. It's like I don't even know anything that will fill it. Sometimes I think a little more food at night, but all it does is make me feel worse. It's just I feel like I'm really at that point. No more money. Yeah. This guy was really rich and spoke of a trip to Alaska and all of that. And for about a week, I was dwelling in fantasies. And That wouldn't make me happy.
It might for a little bit, but eventually, right? Exactly, Alice. That's what I'm saying. All those stories, fantasies, love, romance, all of it, it eventually wears off.
Yeah. It just wears off. Just an accumulation of so many relationships that have worn off, that even starting one, it's already worn off. I know the ending because I can't seek it in something else. But anyway, so I sit here with interest in knowing what you're saying and also touching upon. But it's just being here is better than anything I know. And sitting with Nkosi on Sunday nights and otherwise, it's better than anything I know. It enlivens something within me. So anyway, that's all I wanted to share.
Beautiful. Thanks for sharing.
I'm impressed, Alice, with your courage. I was just thinking, you know, I had a date on Friday night, and I just thought how much courage it would take for me to share. I had somewhat of a similar experience, and it seems like, you know, it seems like it's a personal drama or it's a story, and I would not dare to share it. So I appreciate the fact that you feel safe in this environment to share, you know, what happened in your life. So thank you.
Thank you. That's what we're here for.
So it all wears off, but it's still everything. So there's nothing to wear off because it's everything. So it doesn't wear off. There's no beginning, no middle, no end, because it's everything. And so all would be okay, or it's not going to end. So this, whatever this is not going to end. And I'm not even just talking about the silence, is that it's like this, whatever's going on in your space now, that part, that's everything. That's this. It's not going to end because it has no beginning, no middle, no end, no past. So nothing's going to end. Nothing's going to end, and there are no new beginnings.
Is that something that you are feeling right now within your heart? Is that your total experience, that you're like there where Nkosi speaks from?
Well, I would say that's a great question. I'd say more is just what's speaking. I don't mean that it's something high or something like, whoa, you know, but it's more just something that's speaking. And yeah, it's just something speaking. I wouldn't say, even if you asked me, I wouldn't even necessarily agree with it. If you asked me, that part of the brain that you know so well. But so I'd say it's coming from, I don't know where it's coming from. I really don't.
Are there more than one here, like the me and then are there two me's here? Like one that
Well,
knows.
it's just this. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's all this.
Yeah. Nobody's ever seen a me. The me is like the Yeti, or the, you know, it's rumored to exist, but nobody, you know, the me is talked about in every from the most disgusting to right? I mean, think of all the ways to the most glowing. right? Oh, great me, look what I did. Oh, I'm a piece of shit, 1 minute. So to me, that whole experience is a roller coaster. And here at a certain point, what did they say? The squeeze isn't worth the lemon. The squeeze isn't worth the juice. I think that's the technical term. And so I began just to do nothing. I don't know what's supposed to happen next. I thought I did for about, my whole life.
Michael, isn't that a choice on some level? You decided to do something different and you acknowledge the shift that instead of trying, you went somewhere else, which is great. You went into silence, or you said, I don't know, but that feels to me in a great way like a tool, like you created an awareness of a shift. So if you could maybe speak to that, I'd be curious.
Yeah, well, there's the only little like caveat I would say is there. I know it may sound like a choice in a story, Michael choose, but actually there's already no one here or there who's ever chosen anything.
Right, but you acknowledge right now that something shifted. So that acknowledgement is an awareness that something, even if you say there's no one there to have experienced that, you're sharing with us, just like silence. We talked about silence at the beginning, which of course I love. And silence is also an acknowledgement of an awareness, right? There's a silence that is for lack of a better word, is a better place to be, because it's the unknown, and we can also call it, the indescribable. And I agree with you. I mean, to me, silence is so powerful. It's just like, feels very much, I know we're getting into duality, but it feels very much like a source, or you've used this term in the past, like maybe like a mystery. Or we can just call it this, I guess.
Yeah, just this. But it is the mystery in the sense that nobody knows what this is, because there's nobody separate from this that could know what this is. There's just this, all is this. So even if you think you have a perspective or a particular take, that would have to be this, imagining that it has this unique, spiffy, take, which is completely fine, because you don't get anywhere. If it's all this, where have you gotten?
Because when you were talking earlier, what I found interesting is I can see myself as someone who is seeking silence. And so you could say the seeker is the me, or the story, or the drama. And I completely understand that, but it's like the thorn to get rid of the thorn, right? I see it as a great tool. So, and also seeking is this too. So I feel like and I'm not saying you said there's anything wrong with the seeker, by the way, but I'm just noting that I think when we say that, when we talk about the seeker, we should remember that the seeker is this too. And in my case, the seeker is a very beneficial, helpful tool. Granted, I want to see it as minimal as possible, to where I don't have to seek, and I don't want to seek, and I just want to be in silence, and I just want to be in space. But I find, because of the human conditioning and the programming and stuff that's gone on, along the path, that there is the brain spewing out patterns and programs and what have you. So I find seeking is very, very important to have these tools to help. Maybe, in Zen we call it, they talk about unlearning, right? Learning and then unlearning. So I just wanted to make a point about it. I feel that seeking is, I mean, first of all, it's this. And secondly, I see it in a positive connotation. Not that I can also see it, by the way, in a negative connotation, clearly, that it can start to become a very big inhibitor. But I love the thorn and the thorn analogy because it talks about whether you use the tool or not. At some point, you're getting rid of them both, and you're really just in the Tao is always there, so to speak, or this is always there. So, yeah. Anyway, that's my every 1 month sharing.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
You know, it's interesting, Alan. I've noticed this over time that there is often this notion that the me or the seeking, or that there is these certain phenomena that just because they are kind of selected out or talked about, that they're not desirable, or that they have a negative connotation. And it almost sounds like it's more that they're being identified as, I'm not sure, right at that cusp I kind of stutter or sputter because it's like I have to shift down in first gear, and or Mucci would say, let's take it frame by frame, let's slow it down, or Michael would say, let's shine the light on it. You know, I'm gonna shut up and look a little longer.
That's this too, buddy. It's all good.
No, I know, because like Don would come up with something and then you would come in and kind of like almost feel like you're defending what Don was like talking about. And then in the end, it's like, well, look, if it's all this, there can't be anything wrong with anything. And then the silence kind of comes back.
Beautiful. Silence is where we started. It's actually perfect. Silence comes back. It's absolutely perfect.
Of course, it never left because it's always here.
Right.
Exactly.
That's jargon.
It's worth playing with it, and I'll give you an example. At least for my own amusement, when I will I'll think of what dastardly way could I bring about havoc to silence? I mean, could I light silence on fire? Could I set a bomb off? You know, because we're looking for something that's dependable, right? Something that's not going to break easily. Something unlike our seeking, right? Which no matter how it ends up, the seeking is never abated totally. But silence is always here. It's just not available when we're lost in story for obvious reasons. So you can just notice that, and then, you know, the silence can suddenly call you. Like you know, you've done the dance with the thoughts 10,000 million times. And finally you find, like something like, I'm not that so interested in you, the thought anymore.
So the silence is always there. So when I spoke earlier, I was fully aware I was sharing a story. But I also, I find stories are, I guess I like to hear them. Like the other Michael P. who was here, I knew not a thing about him. All I knew is that he throws out wise sayings that people have done, but I knew nothing about him at all. So that made me feel very separated. But I enjoyed it that Peter had a date on Friday night. I mean, that I can really relate to, and we kind of shared some of the things. And but I think most of us are coming from some kind of story. And I really appreciated you sharing about your cancer when you had that in your process. There's something about a humanness or a connectedness that goes on. And I know this is not what the meeting is about. And I know, you know, I certainly listened enough and listened to Nkosi enough, but I don't, anyway, I don't know what I'm really saying, but all that stuff is really good. And I've experienced a peace, or experience, peace has been experienced or whatever. But I know it's just a story and I Velcro to it. But there have been times where I've really seen, well, this is just showing up and that's all okay. And it kind of falls by the wayside. So, because silence is always there. I mean, I know it is, but I don't tap into it. But then, and again, this I thing is really hard and to talk about, because who's the I and what's this and what's that? We can do all that, and that can drive me nuts.
Yeah. And the whole time while you were sharing so beautifully, Alice, the silence was just right here the whole time.
Yes.
It is not going anywhere. It's not moving. It's not coming. It's not gonna be here. So that's the already that Dan spoke of. That already silence, already undisturbed silence.
You don't tap into it, but you also don't tap out of it. You've never tapped out of it. There's a story of being tapped out of the silence, which is what the me story is. And that's beautiful, as Nkosi might say.
Hi, Nkosi,
Shows up.
welcome.
I'm Kosi.
Hi,
Cozy.
Cozy.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Hello.
We're talking about silence.
I would say silence is talking.
Mhm.
So it doesn't matter, anything may arise in this silence, anything may happen, but it's already this silence, undisturbed silence appearing as everything. So it doesn't need anyone, or it doesn't need any noise not to be there for it to be what it is. It's just already there, in the midst of huge noise, cars hooting, people shouting, in the midst of argument, frustration. That silence is undisturbed. And it's already what you really are. When I talk about you, I'm not really referring to the the imaginary separate self that seems to arise in this silence. I'm talking about this vastness, spaciousness, that which is already here, even before any thought may arise, even before any seeking may arise. It's already here. It can never really be known. It can never really be understood, because there is nothing outside of it to know it and understand it. It's already everything that is being spoken. It's already everything that is being thought. It's already everything that is being discussed. It's already the words that are spoken right now, the listening that is happening, the waiting that is happening, the expectation that is happening. It's already everything. And there is no separate doer of anything here. There is no race already. There is no culture. There's just this. And labels may seem to appear in the story, that there is a certain race, a group of people who come from a certain location. But that's just a silence appearing as that story. So the story itself, there isn't anything here that is trying to get rid of the story, because the story is also an expression of this silence. It's also silence itself. So the story is beautiful. what seems to be the separate person is also an appearance in this silence. So already there isn't anything that is trying to get rid of that's sense of being a person, because it's already not there. It's just silence appearing. That which is already not there. Well, how can you get rid of something that doesn't exist? It's already not there. And there's no one here to know this, to understand this. Understanding may seem to happen in the story, which is also this. So the story and this is not separate, it's just one.
So Nkosi,
So
go ahead. When I came on this call, I started out talking, I said a story, and I was feeling a little guilty about saying a story. But really, when I was saying the story, it was just this talking. Is that what you're saying? It was
yes,
just this talking, and there's
even right now.
even right
It's
now, I think, you know, I have to say that I have, even with people, of course, with people here too, I just kind of, oh, they're in story, you know, like, but that's just like I was in story and am in story most of the time. But it's, you say it's silence always speaking. Always speaking.
Yes. And an individual has never said anything, has never spoken anything, has never done anything. There is no individual here already to do anything, to know anything, to become anything. It doesn't exist. It's just silence appearing as that.
Why does it sometimes feel helpful to share the story? And like I was saying, if somebody else shares a story that's similar to mine, there's some kind of a letting go, or I don't feel so alone, or something like that. But isn't there a place sometimes where sharing the story? Well, I've shared my story with you, and it's been very helpful to have you not react to my story and just meet it lovingly. But it felt like even what I
Yeah,
said earlier was helpful to me.
yeah, it doesn't matter. The story might be shared, might be discussed, but you know, it's just this expressing as that. So this doesn't mind here. It doesn't try to get rid of the story. It doesn't see wrong or right. You know, it's just what's happening. And what's happening is it's beautiful as it is, just the way it is.
Okay.
There might be something that may seem to arise to say, but this shouldn't be happening. That's already this silence appearing as that. Another one may say, oh, I feel good now, right now. No, what is being discussed here is so enlightening. So anything may arise here. Some may swear, may argue, go to the left, go to the right. It's also this totality, everything, or what is appearing as that already. So everything already is just this. There isn't anything that is separate. There's no outside and there's no inside. It's just this. There's no dividing line. It is this talking, arguing with itself, discussing, giving up, not giving up. looking for some other ways, some other tricks, you know, some other ways of finding itself, you know, meditating, experiencing different stories. So already, you know, it's just totality. It's everything already. And there isn't anyone here already to know everything. It's just everything. That which seems to be asking the question is already included in this. Everything is already everything asking a question. So there isn't anything outside that I can try to get inside, because already there's no outside, there's no inside. It's just everything. Sometimes words may seem to be, or I would say words can never really describe what this is, because this, as it is already wordless. And it is so free to be anything, to become anything. So free to appear as anything, you know. There's so much freedom here, and there are no limitations here. So that you who's searching, oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. What seems to be a you who is searching is already totality, what is appearing to search. There isn't a real you who's separate that it is searching. So that's what is seen here all the time. So this doesn't mind the story. It can talk about the story, discuss the story, try to say something about the story, be in the story, you know. It doesn't mind, you know. Everything is okay. Everything is beautiful, because everything is already this.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it made me feel like emphasizing this. You know, there's such a feeling that freedom means being free from the stories, but no, the stories are the freedom. The stories are here, and the stories are not good or bad, and that is the freedom. You know, the stories are here as they are, and that it's all just free. And
Yes.
you know, yes, that's all.
Beautiful.
Yeah, especially thanks Nkosi and Dan for I remember when I first heard you, Nkosi, I thought you were kind of, I mean, except for your sense of freedom, but it was kind of weird. Now tonight I'm thinking, boy, this is weird. I'm understanding what he's saying. And it was clear how you said it. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I learned something listening to Undisturbed and Dan and the whole thing about the story, that I always thought it's, you know, it was important to me to realize what a story is and how the story lives out. And then this was introduced. And then it was like, well, it's important to know that this is a story and this is just this. And tonight in these conversations, it is clear that it's all this. Story is an expression of this, just as anything else is. And so anyhow, thank you. Thanks for everybody who shared.
a question I have would be the stories that we all have, or the stories that are the silences, the stories that are appearing. So it seems that some people, on the level of people, have more have better stories for their life. They have a different life experience because of the story that they're telling. Okay. And if it's everything that is just telling the story, then is it true my story is already, or the story that is appearing here, it's already happening? I mean, I know it's already happening, but it's going to play out as the silence has it play out. I'm trying to get to a little ability somewhere to change the story, or to shift the story, or to shift the energy, looking at it more in terms of energy, to shift that. Or is it just the story that I'm coming through me now is just the story from the silence, and that's it?
Yeah, it's just a story, which is silence appearing as a story. You know, it may appear in its expression as a limited self. It might seem as if that limited self is taking some decisions. It has a free will, but it doesn't have a free will. Actually, it's just the totality appearing as that limited self taking a decision or having a free will. So it's just totality deciding everything, deciding to go to the left, deciding to go to the right, meditating, searching. You know, it doesn't really matter. There is no individual already who's the doer of anything. It's just what is this, or silence appearing as that. So the story may take any direction. You know, some may decide to practice flying, you know, leaving the body, or do whatever. Anything may happen here. It's so free to be anything. You know, there are no boundaries. There are no limitations. And the story may seem to continue when the body drops, may seem to continue some meeting dead relatives. Story continues, but it's just as well totality, everything already appearing as that. There is no real story. It's just this appearing as that.
So
There's no wrong or right.
so if we notice if there's effort that well, I guess there are a lot of things, effort, right and wrong, good and bad, any of that stuff, of course, would I would like to say show me that the person is active and that I'm judging it and it doesn't flow naturally. But that's all part of that too, huh? That's all part of the story too.
Yes, and that can be changed. That may seem to change. It's also this appearing as that. Anything may be noticed. That's okay. Or okay, this person. No, it's just a story. You know, anything may happen. You know, there are no limitations. This doesn't suppress anything. There's no suppression of anything. There might be a meditation that may seem to happen there, a deep meditation, deep looking, happening. So this doesn't say that should happen, that shouldn't happen. It's so free to be anything, to appear as anything.
Beautiful.
In its limitlessness, it may appear as a limitation. So there are no steps already. There's no journey. There's just this. This isn't going anywhere.
So this over here, the contraction over here is just everything contracting here.
Where is the contraction? Contraction?
Say it would be chest and abdomen. That's just this that's just this everything silence contracting here. That's all it is.
Okay, where is it seen from? If it's seen that there is a contraction, where is it seen from?
I mean, on one level, I'd say it's from my mind, but on another level, I'd say it's being seen from everything. The same thing causing the contraction is also then seeing the contraction.
Is there a real contraction there? Or is it just a thought?
Probably just a thought.
Yeah, but I would add this, Don, if you have a contraction, it's this to do something about the contraction. I mean, in other words, you could breathe, you could relax, you could meditate, you could put on music.
But what I hear you, I agree with you, but what I'm understanding is that so if there is a contraction or a thought of a contraction, and if I say, well, I will meditate, which is one of my go-to things, I can't do that because there's no me. So I can't say I'm going to meditate. Maybe everything can meditate, but I can't do that. And that's where I'm getting confused.
How about if meditation just happens?
That's one of the alternatives, right? There's either meditation just happens, or as Alan was saying, I could either meditate or take a walk, like there's me saying, well, I'm going to meditate.
Right. But also though, what's wrong with the contraction? Why isn't the contraction as much as an expression of this and silence as anything else? It's interesting, this implication that we have to do something about the contraction. The contraction is part of the silence.
Yeah, but the contraction may not feel good. If you have a headache, it doesn't feel good. If someone yells at you or cuts you off, it doesn't feel good. So you might want to naturally take action that makes you feel better. And I don't think there's anything wrong with taking action. That's whether the contraction is right or wrong, Peter. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I would just say, from my point of view, again, I can choose to meditate in a silent room or meditate next to a jackhammer. I mean, that's a choice. One's going to give me a headache and one's going to give me a lot of peace. And so And look, if we always say that everything is this, then everything is this. So Dom, when you're saying, well, the me is doing this, the me is doing that, you can say that because that's this too. So you can't go wrong. If you feel a contraction and the contraction is bothering you or upsetting you, there's nothing wrong with doing something about it. That's this too. It doesn't have to be, is it me doing it or me not doing it? That doesn't matter because, I mean, you can say it matters, but ultimately, if everything comes back to it's all this. So feel free to meditate and go for a walk, whether it's the me or not.
I didn't hear Don complaining about the contraction. I thought he was just exploring and he was just like, noticing. And so, yeah, I totally hear it. But what comes back is that's the seeker, and it's not wrong. Of course, it's all good. But that's the seeker who constantly wants something different than what is. And that's perfectly fine.
Right, but that's this too. The seeker who wants something different, it's absolutely perfect. You can't avoid, what I'm saying is you cannot avoid it. If you want to feel better, if you think doing something is going to make you feel better, that's this, and you can't avoid it. Whether you think it's the me or the not me or the story or the not story, doesn't matter. Seeker or non-seeker, doesn't matter. It's all this, so you can't go wrong. Whether and if Don was really in pain or he was just saying it, talking about it, it doesn't matter. If he chooses to do something new and different that's going to help him feel better, that's this. So you can't avoid it. It's the Tao. You cannot avoid it.
Yeah, you can't avoid silence.
Can't avoid it.
Thank you, guys. Thanks to each and every one of you for coming. We so appreciate everyone in Nkosi. No words. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.